Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's podcast episode. Today, I'm actually going to be talking about the effect of stress and emotions on my migraines. It's a really relevant topic right now, actually, because I'm going through a little bit of a rough emotional period. Stress, not so much. At least I don't feel stressed out. The stress and emotions can have a really, really strong impact on migraines. Now, I say usually because I really don't feel like I'm having any extra migraine symptoms right now, and I don't feel like I'm getting extra migraines, but it's usually something that can happen when I get either stressed out or really emotional. And this is one thing I think that is another thing that we don't really talk about very much. We just assume that there's a biological reason why we're having a migraine, and some of these more mental and emotional reasons, like there's literally a mental and emotional component to chronic illness. And if you're wanting more on this, actually, Dr. Rachel Zoffness has some really good work on this, and I highly recommend checking out the stuff that she's done. Her chronic pain workbook is really good too. We're just not ourselves when we're stressed out. I feel like chronic pain just gets so much worse when you're stressed out. And not only when you're stressed out specifically because you're having extra pain, but just in general in your life can cause issues with an increase in your pain dial, which pain dial is another thing that Dr. Zoffness talks about. I refer a lot to her stuff because I find it's the most relatable to what I've actually experienced, and it's helped me understand my chronic pain and chronic illness quite well. As I said, this thing is getting very, very difficult to talk about because so much of what I've dealt with now is a few years old, and like the worst and when I was feeling my worst is so long ago now that it's getting very, very hard to not only remember it, but it's getting hard to talk about things that are 3, 4, 5 years in the past. And you have to get really, really up in your head when you're on like this awakening journey to talk about it. And I feel like having emotional periods, and it's something that I've been dealing with right now where I'll just all of a sudden just burst into tears for absolutely no reason. And it's a symptom of the meditation and awakening. It's a symptom of that part of my life just kind of coming into focus. It's completely normal. It happens to everyone. But it affects me in a little bit different of a way because of having chronic illness. That being said, when you ignore it, it can also make the situation not so great. Usually when I go through a rough time emotionally or with stress, that I can be prone to some extra migraine symptoms. And I say usually because although I'm feeling really emotional right now, I don't really feel any extra migraine symptoms. Now, this doesn't mean that my migraines are cured or anything. It's probably in the fact that my Aimovig, I just had a dose not that long ago. And it probably is the fact that, although I'm going through a really emotional period in my life, my bucket just isn't at the top because there isn't the other things that often trigger that migraine. So this is what I use to talk about this bucket analogy. So this isn't a bucket, but it's a water filling up and your water overflows. So that particular example is the one I wanted to get into with this. So my bucket just isn't close to overfilling. I'm at probably one of the best points in terms of my menstrual cycle, and then the weather is actually doing okay. I've noticed a little bit of extra pain, but it's nothing that I can't deal with. When it comes to this stuff too, if there's a level of distraction, sometimes I can ignore it, and it's not good to always have distractions, but sometimes it's nice. Actually, I have to admit that, having an outlet to really have a good laugh or being really busy, which is what I'm going through right now. A little bit of both, actually. So, I have my coping mechanisms, but it can be really, really tough, actually, when these emotions come out. And it's often during my meditation session, or if it's not during my meditation session, I'm able to, get it out and I don't just suppress it. By having that meditation practice, it's not building up to the point where I essentially just explode with emotions. I'm also able to, because of this meditation and spiritual journey that I'm on, I'm able to let go of a lot of things that happen that I would have been very annoyed with and spend a lot of time thinking about after they actually happen. So I don't necessarily take things to the point where I'm bottling them up and they just explode. So sometimes during my meditation practice, something that's bothered me either from the day before, maybe even a couple days before, will come to the surface and I'll go, interesting. I didn't realize this was actually bothering me, but it's coming up so much that it clearly is. So either if I am able to spend a little bit of time on that and, I don't really get into the why it's bugging me, but just pointing it out and go, okay, that thing is actually bugging me. I don't want to get into any examples, but over the past couple of days, there's been some things that have happened during the day that I normally would have just stirred about and just been absolutely angry and frustrated about it. But I'm able to let it go, and then it comes up again during my meditations in the morning, or even just random points during the day going, yeah, that thing is actually on my mind and it's really bugging me. I wonder if there's a way to address this. If there isn't, I just kind of let it go. I think it's really critical actually to acknowledge some of these things that you maybe feel like you've let go, but you haven't truly let them go. This is another reason I think meditation is such a powerful thing for me. So meditation has been shown to reduce stress. Now, that being said, there's a caveat to this, and a big asterisk. Meditation is not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not always a constant state of bliss. In fact, when you're going through some of these deeper stages of meditation and having a very, very strong and dedicated meditation practice and kind of going through the more spiritual aspect of what meditation can be, which is what spiritual awakening is, which is the only thing I really honestly care about at this point in time. Truly honestly care about, because I've had such a shift since my retreat, and it's actually wasn't the retreat itself, it's been the period of time in the weeks since. My life is completely different. It's beyond words what these last few weeks have done and the changes that I've seen in myself because of where I'm at on this particular path. It's not really a path, but because of where I'm at, I'm going through some and dealing with some of the shadow work that comes along with it. And you can't ignore the shadow work. It comes up when it needs to. But that being said, because you can't run away from the emotions are extremely, extremely strong. And you'll be just sitting there minding your own business, and all of a sudden you'll start bawling. You'll start crying. Or you feel these really, really negative emotions in such a strong way that you don't really understand maybe why it's happening, but it's happening, and you just have to deal with it in the moment. We naturally, as humans, go through ups and downs during our lives. There are times where things are really good, and there are times where things aren't so good. And I know for me, I tend to suppress the negative emotions. I actually didn't think I used to suppress my negative emotions. There was a little bit of an understanding that I did suppress negative emotions. I've kind of felt that way for a while, actually. I knew that I was suppressing negative emotions to a certain degree. But when you go through this journey, you realize just how much you're suppressing those negative emotions. Now there's no suppressing those negative emotions. And like I said, they don't always come up at the most convenient of times. If I suppress it, it only gets worse. So it only becomes a bigger problem suppressing the negative emotions. And actually, so the negative emotions can come up in various forms. So it can be something that happens at work. It can be something that happens just in my life. It can be a grieving process with chronic illness and, having the thoughts of the limitations that I still have with chronic illness despite being as good as I am. There can be a bunch of different things that trigger it, and then there can be just no reason at all, and it just comes up, and it's just a natural part of the ebb and flow of life. Basically, I don't really understand why these negative emotions just come up. You sometimes don't get your answers as to why things are happening, but you acknowledge that they are happening in the moment, and you manage it in the moment. I've been dealing with a lot of what I think is Kundalini energy lately, and I don't even like acknowledging this because I'm so skeptical and science minded, but this energy truly cannot be denied. Like, so over the past week before like today, I've been dealing with some really strong tenderness, and I would call it, yeah, I would say it's a tenderness in my chest. It's like right here. It's during my meditation practice, but it's also like all of the time. And it was so strong on Sunday that like I have this thing, like this bear thing that I cuddle with, and I had it actually on my chest because the pressure was helping a bit. But, I noticed this energy a lot, and like I feel almost a vibration in like my arms and legs and all of that. I think it's very similar, this energy that I'm experiencing, to what some describe as like hearing the hum of the universe, basically, with a thing that the brain blocks out with the tinnitus and all of that. I'm a very skeptical person, and talking about this stuff makes me sound like I'm completely off the rails, basically. Because I've been dealing with some very strong emotions lately, though, I wonder if it's just some negative emotions coming up and having some things happen in the last couple of days, just in everyday life, has just brought it to the surface a little bit quicker. I don't really know. I don't really ask why things are happening, though. Like, I just kind of go with the flow and see what happens. Like, the thing to keep in mind is that it's okay to have these negative emotions, that the negative emotions will eventually pass. And we kind of always go through our ups and downs, even in daily life. Like, even if you don't have a meditation practice, like, there are some days where you're like, things are so great. I'm feeling so good. Things are going so well, and then there's other times where you just feel down. And the important thing is that the bliss and the peace is really strong when it happens, but I think people need to understand that the negative emotions that can come up and the natural ebb and flow is just as important to experience and feel as the peace and bliss. Like, just because we have it labeled as this is bad and shouldn't be happening because it's like a really strong negative emotion, I don't think that we should be suppressing it just because we've labeled it, oh, I'm really emotional right now, I shouldn't be like this, I gotta be able to function. Like, how is that fair to ourselves at all? Like, we always want to have this peace and bliss, but we never ever want to experience that negative emotion. And I just find that really fascinating. I have been going through a bit of a rough time right now, and I'm not noticing any extra head pain. But I also just had my dose of Aimovig too, so that's probably helping. Like I said, I'm likely to give a biological reason for it, but I really do think that the meditation and the work that I do with that also does help with it, because it's not really, I don't feel stressed at all. Like, this feeling in my chest kind of reminds me a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of what stress used to feel like, but it's a different type of context, and it's really hard to describe it other than it's just an uncomfortable feeling. And that being said, just because it's uncomfortable, I'm probably labeling it as negative, but this energy is just really strong to deal with, and it's something that is it's just strong because it's been a discomfort. It's probably something that my brain is labeled as, oh, that's negative, why are we feeling this, shouldn't be happening. And those are kind of the thoughts that I have that have come and gone, But that being said, I'm perfectly okay with it at this point. I don't really know if I've gone through an actual awakening, but I know that I've experienced some type of shift in the way I'm perceiving reality. It's difficult to talk about and it's difficult to describe, and it's not really the content or focus of the channel, but it's something that is happening right now in my life, so it's really hard to ignore talking about it. But that being said, I don't really like talking about it because I feel like I don't have the expertise to talk about it. It's really a very weird situation. It's also a very personal thing. I don't know how to talk about it, and I feel like if I talk about it in the wrong way, I'm doing it a disservice. Just having extra stress in day-to-day life can make things harder to manage. It doesn't have to be a huge life event or set of circumstances at all. That being said, running from emotions or trying to suppress them also doesn't help. And it's about balance too. So what I'm getting at with this is that it doesn't have to be something that's happening in your life that's really, really significant to affect chronic illness or chronic pain. Not all stress is a bad thing. Sometimes stress helps you grow as a person. And that's where I think this stress is that I'm having right now with this stuff, with the, with this part of my life. It's not a bad thing at all. It's just a part of it. And there are certain times where stress is just necessary, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to have an impact on your chronic illness or chronic pain and could temporarily make things worse for sure. And it's just about so many things impact us in so many different ways that people without these conditions just have no idea about. Because of what you're dealing with in your life, you may be going through extra symptoms because of something that is totally out of your control. And that can be really difficult for people who don't deal with these conditions to understand. And stress impacts so many different things in the body, and emotions can have such an impact on the body. When you run from your emotions or try to shoot them down just because you think that it's such a negative thing that, oh, I shouldn't be dealing with these at all, you actually make the situation worse. I find that dealing with the emotions and the stress in the moment now makes it so that it's so much less of a problem because it doesn't boil and bubble up and explode. And you also don't take it out on the people around you, or at least I try not to take it out on the people around me. Sometimes I wonder if I am accidentally taking it out on, something out on people around me, of the way I respond to something, and be later go, ooh, I kind of responded to that in a not so great way. You really realize the impact of emotions on yourself when you're going through this stuff. There's so many different ways that stress and emotions can impact your life. I'm sure all of us can come up with something in the way that is affecting our lives in this particular way. But just know that if you feel like you're going through a bit of a rough patch with emotions and stress, I think it's nice to know that you're not alone in the fact that you feel like your symptoms with migraines or other chronic pain or IIH or whatever you're going through right now can be worse. And I feel like that's fair to talk about. And I really wish that we were given a little bit of more help to deal with this part of our lives, because they do have such a strong impact on chronic illness and all of that. And my question is, does science even acknowledge this relationship? I really want to know, because I really do feel like there's not any emphasis put on stress, and knowing drugs and medication and medicine these days, they just put you on an anti-stress or anxiety or those type of medications, and just in that way, and not actually manage the root cause of the problem or give you tools to manage it without the medications. So maybe it's actually a good thing. The one thing I wish is that we were given more resources on how to deal with the mental and emotional aspect of dealing with chronic pain. But when it's not even really acknowledged, I guess it makes sense that we're not given resources on it. If you're wanting to follow me off of YouTube, you can do so on Instagram at Awareness with Ashley and TikTok at Awareness with Ashley as well. These you will find things like short videos and the short content. I do 3 short videos a week now. So I do the 2 regular ones that are clipped from the podcast, and then I do responding to comments. So if you have a question or something that you want me to answer, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. You can also find me on Facebook at Ashley Stuart, and that's the same as my YouTube channel for those of you who are watching off of YouTube. And for some other shenanigans, you can find me on Twitter at AshleyStewart94. I share the short video content, but honestly, my Twitter is more of a personal look at my life and kind of more of what's kind of on my thoughts, basically. I'm not on Twitter as much as what I used to be, just because I find the platform is not the greatest for facilitating conversation. Make sure you guys are paying attention to the community tab, because now that I have that, I will be sharing a lot more content with you guys. There's going to be some quiet periods and all of that, just because I am working. There will be like announcements in the community tab. If I'm unable to do a live stream for whatever reason, that's where you'll find it. And just, yeah, like it's a great way to just keep up daily with the channel. Of course, I'm not going to post every day, but you know, I can't handle that. I also have to take a little bit of breaks from social media, just because it can get a little overwhelming at times, and I do need my breaks in order to keep myself creative and all of that. But yeah, I'm really excited about the community tab on YouTube, just because it does allow me to share so much more different types of content, whether it's photos, what's happening in my life, all of that. And it's so nice that YouTube has given access to the community tab for so many more creators. We would probably hit it by the end of this year anyways, because I think it was 500 subscribers. So I'm between 400 and 500 at this point in time. So I'm sure I would have gotten access to it by the end of 2023. But you never know. The channel goes up and down and how fast it grows, and I feel like YouTube pushes your content when you're about to cross another milestone. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button and make sure you give the video a like. It just helps the algorithm push out the video and gets it to more people who are dealing with migraines or have people in their lives that are dealing with migraines, and it just helps basically get the content out there. I know that all YouTubers say that, and you guys probably who are watching this get annoyed with how much we push the like and subscribe, but it honestly does help a lot. And the more subscribers you have, the bigger the reach, yes, and you get perks when you crest certain milestones, but that just allows the creator to interact with you in so many different ways. So it's really important. I love when people hit the like button, because it shows that they are enjoying the content. Even the dislike button, it helps you go, okay, like, what did I do wrong with this video? What could it be that people don't like about it? And unfortunately, like, now the dislikes aren't shown, but we do see it on the creator side. If you're wanting to support my content, you can do so on locals.com. So this is a very similar site to Patreon, and it's $2 a month, and you get access to supporter-only exclusive content, such as a little bit more personal stuff in my life and stuff that I'm a little bit less comfortable sharing to the wider public, but want to talk about. And it can be a multitude of different things, and if you want, you can join and see if you like it. And if you do like it, great, you can stay. Check out the content that I talk about on there, because it does get a little bit more personal. If you're listening to this on the podcast, please do subscribe and leave a review. Also, if you're listening to this on Spotify, there's a poll, I believe now, that Anchor automatically puts on my podcast content. So if you have any feedback or anything like that, feel free to leave it in the comments there as well. If you have any questions you guys want me to do in a responding to comments video, I plugged this earlier, but feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Or even if you just want to share a quick little story about your experience with IIH or migraines, I'm open to that as well. The more we can get out there, the better. So that being said, I think that's where I'm going to end it for today, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this week's podcast. I hope to see everyone next week. Bye for now.